The kettlebell goblet squat is a squat variation where you're just going to be using one kettlebell. It gets its name because this is considered the goblet hold. So you're going to hold the kettlebell by the horns, these are the horns, and get into your squat stance. So a good place to start for your squat stance is about hip width, maybe a little bit wider, toes slightly turned out. Because of all of our unique hip structure, everybody's squat stance is going to look a little bit different. So some people will have more toes turned out, some more slightly in. Some people might have a wider stance. Find a stance that's comfortable to you that allows you to get into a good squat pattern. So once you find your stance, you're going to clean the bell up, get your goblet hold, and I want you to actually think of pulling these horns apart to make sure that your lats are turned on. So your shoulders are going to be down and back. I'm pulling the horns to try and turn on my lats. And I'm going to also pull myself down into this squat position. So I'm keeping my ribs down as I lower myself into the squat position and drive back up out of the hole. So you can see from the side, getting my squat stance, get nice and tall up at the top. I'm going to pull those horns to make sure that my shoulders are down and back, my lats are on, and then I'm going to think of pulling myself into that squat position, trying to maintain an upright torso as much as possible. Drive out of the hole. Since we're really focusing on the core while we're doing these movements, you want to make sure that your ribs and hips are also in really good alignment. So one little drill that I like to do is actually stick my thumb and my pointer finger on my lower ribs and find that pointy part of my hip bone. If I stand and I'm in good alignment, this space actually shouldn't move too much as I start to go into my squat pattern. If I open too much, you can see this space on my back, get a really bad arch in my back. And if I bend over this way, again, I get punchy shoulders. So in your squat pattern, you want to try and keep that alignment the entire time as you're going down into your squat. If I open up too much, I end up popping my butt out. And if I close, I end up being too punchy. Second piece to that is you want your shoulders and your hips to descend and come out of the hole at the same rate. So if you watch, these 2 points should be lowering at the same rate and coming out of the hole is the same rate. I'm going to get my stance, make sure my lats are on, ribs are over hips. I'm going to pull myself into the hole, drive out of it. Hips and shoulders are lowering and rising at that same rate. Last piece. Remember also to drive out of the hole through your heel and midfoot. I don't like to cue people to sit back onto their heels. I like to cue people to actually drive the ground away from them. So as you get to the bottom of your goblet squat, here, I really want you to think of just driving that ground away from you. If you're tipped forward, then your butt ends up coming up first. Not good. Hips and shoulders should come up at the same rate. Here, drive the ground away from you. Come to the top of your squat. So a few repetitions. One last cue while you're doing your goblet squat is to try and aim your elbows to the inside of your knees. Now, your hip mobility may not allow you to get that low, and that's okay. It's just something to aim for. So while you have your kettlebell in your goblet position, the kettlebell will float off with you just a little bit, acting as a counterbalance as you go down into your squat. So I'm in my squat stance, I'm pulling the bell, my lats are on. I'm going to pull myself into this position, and my elbows end up on the inside of my knees. Core is still fired up, my ribs should be down, as I drive the ground away from me to come up out of the hole.